And I'm not lying, guys. Like, Japan hates... I think he's like attracted to the second picture.
He kind of wants to take off the shoes and then see them steam a little bit.
He said he wants to be my pet. And
now you get to try this. This is my new favorite snack.
Okay, itadakimasu. It's really good.
It's really good, right? Guys, it's this. If you're in Japan, come get it. You got a nut as well.
A nut?
There's a nut. All right, so what are we talking about today?
Do you remember? A couple videos ago, I talked about how Japan hates me. Actually, in Japan, I never received any Grindr messages. Like if I don't tap or don't do any reaction, I just turn it on and walk around. Like nobody, it's like dead silence.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a popular video and you were sad.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it was a lie. Japan hates bottom, Japan doesn't hate me. Japan loves me actually.
At the moment.
Yeah, Japan loves me. And Japan doesn't like me as a bottom, doesn't like me as a skinny bottom. You know, like earlier this year, I complained that like in Japan, I never get any Grindr messages.
Yeah.
I need to always like post the other person for attention. Like when I open up my Grindr, where if I open up my Grindr in other countries, I always get like messages like coming into my inbox and I can just like respond. But in Japan, it's like always coming from me, right? That situation has changed. Now, when I open up my Grindr, there are messages always coming.
Where are you? Are you on? What is it? Naimon?
No, like Grindr.
Oh, so you're versed now.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to talk to you is I
Okay.
changed my position from a pure bottom. I used to be just bottom, not even verse bottom. I changed it to verse. And also I have a new profile picture.
Yes.
Is, you know, I have been commuting to the gym for like almost more than a year right now. Although like, you know, I'm not nowhere close to like bodybuilder or something. I think I have a more fitter body compared to the older skinny twink that I was, you know?
Yeah.
So just these two basic changes. And I have a whole total new identity and a new reality as well. Like literally I don't have to do anything. I just need to leave my Grindr open and messages like flew in. Let me tell you, okay, now I get this new attention from all the Tokyo bottoms from the city. We should probably change our channel name, you know?
Yeah, we can upgrade it to Tokyo Verse. This channel's funny because there are people who are like, even the other day on the Sniffies, someone was like, well, you know, I'm a bottom, and I know that you're a bottom because I watched the channel or something like that. And then I'm like, well, I can top, like.
You can.
I can
if you really
if
have
I really
to.
have to. You know what I mean? But it's funny, of course, right? Because like it creates this like
Do you think
pigeonhole image, you know?
Yeah. Do you think it limits us? Like
It
people just
could.
assume that we are bottoms, for example, like they think we are attractive, but they just think, oh, it's the same number, like we are the same role. That like, sorry, even though I think you're hot, like we just let's stay friends, you know?
It does, sometimes I do think like that, but then actually when I tried to, so when I was on Sniffies, I actually advertised myself more as verse because it was more sex-based. And I wanted to see what would happen. And I did get more attention, but I realized through that, oh yeah, buddy, I'm more of a bottom. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, because then I did get different types of, I wouldn't necessarily say more, but just different types or more balanced, right? Because I was like averse or whatever. And I was finding myself just not vibing as much with the bottoms. So some of the bottoms, yes, but just in general, I was like, yeah, no.
What is the key element that you're not vibing with?
I think the strike zone is, as we say in Japanese strike zone, wider for tops. This is a good example. If a bottom comes to me and has a hairy ass, no, out.
Okay.
But a top is fine. If we're going into preference, I'm just not really.
I thought it's gonna be a more personality thing.
But sure, but I mean that's just many. There's many examples, right? That's just one that like comes to mind, for instance, right? As a top, you could be fully shaved or you could be not shaved. There's a lot more
like range for you
for me to
accept.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna get in trouble saying this, but I find bottoms kind of meaty.
I mean, you have been saying this for years, so
needy.
that's not your first time saying this word.
And that is...
Do you think I'm needy?
So do you think, because we talked about this, I think, recently in the Q&A video, people were saying like, you know, has your new body resulted in attention?
Not at the white party, but
Here.
in my day-to-day life in Japan, yes.
What about, did you change your picture and also your position at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, because I would also be curious if you remain the bottom in your new body. I don't know, but that's, if we're gonna try and do more research.
Should I just do like more twisting?
Yeah.
But yes, this combination, it seems like works better for me. Sometimes I just realize maybe you're not popular. You're just like competing in the wrong lane. You know what I mean? Like if you choose the different lane, because the bottom lane is too saturated.
Yeah. Too many cars.
Yeah, too many cars.
So these pictures, I do think you're giving that sort of like toppy vibe, and like just some feedback here, you know, sister to sister. This one also, sorry, I need to screenshot these.
No, I will upload it.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be editing this. I don't want you to block me after and change them. I can't think of the right word, but you look like you're not a twink anymore, not only from a, like, you burly, but also there's something about this that looks like you're like oji-san. And I'm not saying this in a bad way.
Yeah. Like a grown man.
Mature man, maybe late 30s. That vibe as well, I think, is also serving a different...
Yeah, okay.
Right?
So actually a lot of guys actually messaging me because of the second picture.
Yeah, they're like, fuck me in the suit.
Yeah, because a lot of people have like that suit fetish in Japan.
Yeah.
Like I think limang is a very popular word in Japan, that they kind of love this genre that like after work you wear like a salaryman like suit and also have that vibe as well. So people will be like, oh, can you come over in suits? Yeah. So.
I mean, it's a super hot idea for me if a guy comes over and I can like pull, or like if I'm at a dance party, like, I don't know, I don't go to weddings. I am going to a wedding, so this is what I'm thinking of. But you know, people are in suits. I have this fantasy of like grabbing some guy by like a tie and like leading him in. Like that's really hot.
No. So let's talk about picture change, right?
Okay.
So I used to have this like smiley profile picture, being like, oh, I think face is my better feature, so I'm gonna be friendly and smiley. And also my major goal is like to find relationship, which, you know, doesn't really work out very well on Grindr. So I followed the gay rule, like never smile on the picture. And I chose like a mere selfie, kind of like more show off my body and create a mysterious vibe and hide like part of my face as well. Not very like all my face, but I kind of like look at who I think get, like, for example, on Night Monster, you can see who has like really high level. And what kind of picture that they use on their profile. So I kind of copy paste that direction a little bit to create that. I think a lot of people also just do like gym. That's also like another typical good one, right? So I went with that direction.
It's like when you're redoing a house or you're like preparing a house for sale or rent, everything's white. Everything's just like very, like there's no accent wall, there's nothing, there's no crazy colors, whatever. You want something that's so basic that it can't put anyone off. And I feel like maybe this is like that structure, right? Like, I'm not gonna smile, I'm not gonna show any personality. Like, we just did a video on Muscle Bar, right?
Yeah.
You loved the guy who didn't show face at all. He was just bored and did nothing. And I think maybe people can attach their own, it's like a blank canvas. It's not blank.
It's like Japandi, you know?
Right? It's like,
you can't go wrong.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. And like people can sort of like imagine easily whatever and put any view or thought they have on that and it can work.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. I just feel like you should show less personality.
Yeah, and also this fucking shot where it's like this. It's always like, I'm not really gonna show you. And then
But you know that shot, right?
Like, I know that shot. And it's always like,
Yeah, and I think in the beginning I was trying to do like more posy stuff, and apparently not being posy is the best.
Yeah.
And just kind of like just
natural.
like very laid back, kind of like relaxed vibe and take
Yeah.
a picture.
Yeah.
And kind of like, hey, what up?
Yeah. Again, I don't want to show any personality. This might be too much.
Okay, let me talk about people who messaged me. Okay.
Okay.
'Cause I think I told you a little bit off camera as well.
Use the words you told me. Use the words.
What? Like, what's the word I used?
Tall, handsome bottoms waiting for me to breed them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like when I say tall, they're really fucking tall.
How
Like
did you do it?
like 185 centimeters and
geez.
plus. Yeah.
So were they on top or they just lied down? Like how do you get their legs
I mean, like
up?
when they lay down, like there's
But
nothing.
what about legs? You still have to like. But you've been working out.
It actually surprised me because I thought like all the bottoms want like to be dominated by people who are like bigger and taller than them. But not really. Like a lot of them, like I was worried. I was like, okay, but like you check out my height, right? Like I'm 165. Like they're like, you're way taller than me, and they're always like, no, we don't mind. Like we.
We.
Not we. No, like, I'm saying like multiple people reply the same way. Being like, I don't mind height at all. Height is actually a less important factor than I thought. Because I always think like, you know, lack of height is one of my biggest weakness.
Well, yeah, I know that is one of your complexes, but I have had great sex with a lot of shorter tops. So I'm not necessarily sure.
But you're also like not 185.
I'm not
you know?
super tall either. But then that also means that the tops that are shorter than me are quite short.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And you can notice the differences, right?
And I've never had an issue. Actually, height in general, it's not a thing for me. Like, doesn't turn me on or off if you're tall or short. It really does nothing for me.
Right.
So like, I don't know, maybe these other guys are like that too. A lot of people like the gap.
Gap.
Yeah. So like, I've had people, for instance, who say that they like me more because I look more like I'm not saying this is, I'm just saying what they're saying, that I look more like a top. I mean, there's a lot of tops who love topping tops. Like, right? They go like that whole like
mask for mask.
Or maybe turning the idea of the fantasy of like turning someone. So like I've had people come to me and say like, oh, I really like the fact that you look like a top, but you're a bottom. So they get off on that gap.
You look like a straight, but I'm gonna turn you gay.
Yeah. So like maybe that's another thing too. You are maybe more looking topper. Well, if we're gonna be super basic about it, sure. But maybe part of it also is that in their mind, maybe in all of our minds, maybe the top is the taller one, and having a shorter one, they kind of get off on that gap, on that flip.
Or maybe the height is just like not.
Or maybe it doesn't matter at all.
As important as I thought, you know, like.
I mean, it's your complex, really. Yeah.
To many people, it's not a huge deal, you know. Now I realize one thing, okay. It was like because I'm getting so many messages from the like really handsome guys that I couldn't imagine getting messages when I was a bottom. When
back in the day.
Back in the day. Now I realize how competitive the bottom.
The cars are it's a traffic jam.
Yeah, because literally I was competing with these people for tops. Like I had absolutely no chance. Like, come on. Like now I realize like it just like oversaturated, you know, that market. And of course, when the top getting messages from me and those really, again, handsome, tall, muscular people, like who are you gonna choose? It's a very easy answer. It's like, wow, okay, what did I do to myself? Like now I've realized that I'm gonna compete in an easier way, you know, choose a different lane.
Survival of the fittest. You're just like, gonna change my diet.
See, that makes sense, right?
I mean, that's adapting. That's how you'll survive into the next generation.
You know, actually different from your kind of experience. You're like, oh yeah, buddy, I'm like a bottom. Like after interacting with a lot of people. Now I actually feel more comfortable and like desirable. And I feel good.
That's good.
And I decided to stay verse.
Stay verse. Stay verse. Stay verse, guys.
Stay verse.
Stay verse.
Stay home.
Stay home. Stay verse.
Okay, I want to show you some of the guys like I had fun with. Okay, like こういうの話.
He looks more like a top.
right?
Yeah.
Like
the gap. So like you guys, if you two were in a room, people would be like, we're assuming and being, all that, it's silly.
Like-
but they would be like, he's the top and you're the bottom.
Like, don't you feel he can be like in some
K-pop
K-drama?
Yeah.
Like
K-drama.
literally, this is the level I'm at right now. And he's so fucking into me right now. He's like asking me for like mata aitai na, dateしようみたいな. I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's a different reality that I experience with. So let me also like show you all the messages. See, yesterday. I didn't poke anyone.
Wow.
And I'm not lying, guys. Japan hates bottoms. Do me a favor, if you want to make your gay life much easier, just change from a bottom to top. And it's actually not that difficult to be gay and popular. Just 1, 2 things, like have a muscular, sexy picture, and then
Like this.
yeah, like this.
Back in the day, we had a conversation with Don, and Don was kind of talking about how he forced himself
Into
a
verse.
becoming a verse.
Wait, okay, so then I have a question for you. How do you explain I'm still single then?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you refuse to talk. That's why.
Oh, no, that's true, because the most wanted is verse.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe.
So
Yeah.
if you just explore your versatility or find out, like, that's what my journey was. When I came to Japan, I was more bottom, not like body yuke. I was just bottom. But because my body type is bigger, point, I was asked to top more, and I actually learned to enjoy it, and I learned the kind of person who I would want to top, and the person that I would want to top me.
Don's birthday is coming up, so you can go up to him and be like,
Tell him like, thank you for the advice. I mean, but I had my own
understand.
awakening. I'm like, mutation.
Mutation, evolution,
Evolution.
devolution.
Okay, Andrew, do you decide, after hearing my story, do you feel like you should change to verse?
No,
on Grindr?
because this is another thing. I'm not a bad top. So
You're a bad top?
I am not a bad top.
Okay.
So that's another thing is like when, again, these times when I realize at the end of the day, oh, I'm more of a bottom, is when I do top and people do come back for more, it can get like overwhelming at times. Like a lot of people are like, I want you to top again, I want you to top again, I want you to top again. And then I get to a point where I'm like, I want a bottom. Like I feel, because I am getting attention from bottoms as well, right?
Yeah.
Then all I'm doing after a while is topping, and it doesn't feed my soul in the same way. You know what I mean? And I get to a point when I get frustrated because I'm like, I'm wanting to like have something different for dinner. You know what I mean? And like,
But you have been bottom for like years. Like
no, but I always say like I have to force not force. It's not that bad. But I am pushing myself into. I'm pushing myself more into a top role often than I normally would had I got attention from tops. And so it's sort of what's the word?
like
A vicious cycle. Because the more I top, the more people want me to top.
Yeah.
Right? So my answer to your question, which was very long-winded, is I feel like if I change myself to verse or something like that, like I did on Sniffies a little bit, but Sniffies is very tiny in Japan.
Yeah.
I feel like if I did it on Naimon and Grindr, it probably would have an effect, but I already know that occasionally when I go into that territory, I always pull back. So I don't think I would be happy
I see.
there.
But I think like something I realized after experience doing this experimental thing is that I guess because of like ちょっと S の
Yeah.
性格が because I'm a little bit S.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be both, but I'm more S in general. So it's not that hard to be a top.
Yeah, just like take you, little bitch. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying to them, right? You're a little K-drama handsome man over there, just throwing his head in the pillow and be like,
You like that? You like that?
No, I actually don't hate it. Like it's very
It's very natural.
It's very natural for me. So
yeah.
like, I think because of that personality of mine, like it's not. It's easier than what I imagined. I don't feel like uncomfortable or being like, oh, I want a bottom, because sometimes I do hate bottoming because of the preparation and it hurts, sometimes you break your ass and people too big, so it's actually more easier.
Yeah.
in terms of like all those like activities and preparation.
Oh,
So-
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And I will say it's interesting, like, I think it is a person thing as well. There are times when a guy, just so into something about it, the vibe, something, I can't put it in words, but there's such an attraction that I'm willing to be the top. Like happy to be the top, want to continue even as being the top, you know?
Yeah, but right, like that's what I feel. But all the bottoms messaging me like 185 plus. I'm like, how you like when you look at my picture, being like, oh, I want this guy to top me so bad, you know? Like that's kind of weird to me. Actually, you know what? In Chinese, we call like a short top like a corgi.
Corgi, oh, that's so cute. Yeah, I think that's probably better than what we say in English, because I think in English we call them like short kings.
I mean, short king, yeah,
Short king,
short
is that
king
what
is
we
fine,
say?
yeah.
Yeah.
But in Chinese we call it a corgi top.
Oh, I'm just thinking of Queen Elizabeth with all her little tops all around her. Tops probably don't like being called that. It's endearing. It's endearing. You're a corgi, maybe.
Oh my god, I don't want to be a corgi.
Maybe that should be your third picture. But corgis are loved. The Queen had 4.
Okay.
Right?
So I guess they
It's
can be
endearing.
lovely.
It's endearing. Yeah, it's very endearing and charming. Maybe these guys got ruined by a whole bunch of other toppy, like traditional toppy tops, and they want something different.
Or sometimes people say like tall bottoms are having problems. You know, sometimes they have problems finding tops. So I'm wondering maybe that's another reason.
That's actually a good point. Yeah. I do know some tops. We know some tops that like shorter guys. Because they want to feel like
they're like dominating them, right?
Yeah, I do know, I can think of someone in particular who was dating someone and never went through to the end, essentially, to becoming boyfriends, because he couldn't get really over the fact that that guy at the bottom was significantly taller than him. He was just like, I just can't like imagine it or get over it, essentially. And so I thought that was really silly when that happened. I was like, is it that big of a deal? But, you know, for me, I said hair. Hairy butt would be something, you know, so like people have their things, I guess, you know? Oh, poor, tall, handsome BTMs.
Yeah, look at these guys, like he's so cute too.
Oh, he's really cute.
He's really handsome as well.
He's
he
really
wants
handsome.
him to ruin him too.
Oh, wow.
You know,
have you ruined him yet?
Not yet, but we're
You're planning to ruin it.
We're talking. And he's like, I want you to, like, I want to smell your socks after
wow.
you. So he's
No,
actually.
see that's exactly where I get in, and I'm just kind of like, no, I don't know.
Why? He's like, I think he's like attracted to the second picture, which is more like businessman.
After a day of work, you've been in your meetings and stuff all day. Your feet are stinky as shit.
Yeah.
And he kind of wants to take off the shoes and then see them steam a little bit.
Yeah, and he's like, he wants to be my pet. And
this reminds me how much of I want. Yeah, buddy, I'm a bottom.
You know, I would never get messages like this before, and now I have this new attention, and I don't know how to handle them. So, what do you think? Do you guys think Japan is really a country full of bottoms? I mean, it is true.
It is.
Yeah,
I've said that 80%.
But how do you feel like after hearing my stories? Like, if you're a bottom, do you feel like you want to change the lane as well? Like, competing differently? Maybe if you're a hard time finding tops, maybe you can become who you want to.
The bottoms will be happy to see you go. Bye.
Less competition.
One less car in the lane.
No, honestly, I was no competition to them to begin with. Okay.